I'm Jackie Lucky, your financial planning maestro. This series of podcasts is aimed at financial planning professionals and also those who are looking to enter the financial planning profession. We will be talking during the podcast about all things certified financial planner certification related, talking to other CFPs around the world, and also we will be dropping in on some new entrants who've just entered the financial planning profession, and we'll be checking up along the way on a regular basis with them to see how they're getting on. I hope you enjoy today's podcast. Hello and welcome. I'm Jackie Lucky, your financial planning maestro. And in today's session, we are talking all things certified financial planner related with someone who has recently passed their CFP certification in the UK, and that is Daniel Ryan. Welcome, Daniel.
Hi, Jacqueline. Thanks for having me.
Yes, great to have you. We are going to get into the nitty gritty of how you got on with your case study, aren't we, in a minute?
Great.
But first of all, I've got a couple of questions for you before we get into all of that detail. Just give us a quick run through of your professional working life and how you got into the financial planning profession.
Yes, of course. So, technically, I'm actually in a wealth management profession, which over the years has seemed to have morphed into being more advice-led through financial planning. So as I see my role slightly changing over the years that I started approximately 21, 22 years ago. And actually, it was a school leaver program that I entered in the financial services industry, where I was learning more about the operational side of banking businesses and wealth management businesses. I was did that for about 3 years. And then I had the very fortunate luck to be able to go on the front line, and that's working directly with clients first as support, but then as a client advisor or stroke wealth manager. Yep. But my current role is a private banker, but that is encompassing of everything for a private client in terms of the advice-led process, which has driven me down the CFP route.
Excellent. So you've kind of had a few varying roles then, and were you one of the people that kind of fell into this as a more mature student, or did you just it was a conscious decision to get into wealth management and private banking side of things?
Well, when I first started my career, it was very much, I fell into it, family situation where my mother said, if you don't find a job, I'm kicking you out your home. I managed to find a job. So I fell into financial services. But actually, when I started that journey, I really did enjoy working with clients. So my background and my sort of determination was to be that advisor, that trusted advisor for my clients. And that has then pushed me over time through the investment part and then through the financial planning part.
Yeah, interesting. And was there anything in particular that you enjoy or have enjoyed and do enjoy about giving advice to clients? Are there any particular aspects of it?
Yeah, well, it's very interesting you say that, because there is a lot of things that I enjoy about it, to be honest. Typically, the clients I work with are entrepreneurs. They are very successful in what they do. They've managed to grow very large businesses and sell them for very large sums. Some of them, not all of them, I hate to add. But it's great when someone like that just depends on you so much for their own financial life and their family. And building strategies and building a plan for clients is what I love. I'm sure I'll probably continue doing it for another 20 years or so.
Yeah, that's fantastic to hear. That's great to hear. And I think, everybody has their strengths in life, don't they? And if you're dealing with, successful entrepreneurs, they can't be everything to all people. So they need, good, reliable, wealth managers and financial planners like you to be able to, that they can lean on. And so they don't need to know everything about everything.
No, exactly. And, these, some of my clients will range from the ages of, late 20s to late 60s. And it varies from obviously client to client, but it's always just really rewarding when they need to lean on you. And it's not just them, it's their whole family. These are some clients I have are generational. So I'm looking after the children and they have their different objectives and their different challenges, which then you have to adapt to, and which I just thoroughly enjoy. And just the
Yeah.
last thing is the entrepreneurial space in the UK is such a massive market and movement, and you meet so many different interesting businesses, people, and it's quite funny. It's always a nice dinner story to tell to your friends and who you've met and what kind of thing they're working on, because there's so many great innovative people in the UK.
Yeah, I'm used to, when I used to work at the accountancy firm giving advice there were some fantastic clients, 3 young guys who started a building contract. They used to renovate all of the university housing for students in the Bristol area. And it was absolutely fascinating how they looked at risk, because they were taking a colossal amount of risk, obviously on a day-to-day basis. They employed a team of building contractors to renovate all of these buildings. So the overheads were huge, outlays massive. And there are 3 young guys with 3 young families, and they would come to me and say, "Oh, Jackie, we don't really want to take any risk. I know that we're only like 25 or whatever, but we're taking all of our risk in our business." And they kind of want to balance it out with the scales. And it's really interesting to talk them through those kind of dilemmas when they know a lot about one area, but don't know much about investment, isn't it?
Yeah, no, quite right. And like I said, it's great when different people, with different backgrounds, different educations, just all need this help. And I love doing it,
Great.
quite honestly.
Excellent. So tell me, how did all of that lead you to the door of the Certified Financial Planner Assessment?
Well, it was a few years ago when I was looking at furthering my knowledge really about what I do. And this was actually during the pandemic, because what I found in my current role is that we were going down the route of being more advice-led. And my current position is that I don't actually give any formal advice. What I do is I review the client situation, I spot the opportunity, I talk to them about it at a high level, and then I would bring someone in to actually write the advice for me. So I'm quite fortunate in that respect. I get all the good parts of it and none of the sort of administration with it. But I found that, and I thought that maybe my role might be slightly redundant, because if you had that advisor coming in being me and writing the advice, then actually my role could be under a bit of pressure in the future. Yeah. So I thought, well, why don't I look at going down the financial planning route and seeing what qualifications there are, because I had done the PCAM through CISI, and that got me to a good investment knowledge level, I believed. And so I thought, well, let's go on the financial planning route, see what CISI had to offer. So looking at the program that they had, was obviously they have the advanced financial planning level 6, which I looked at the paper, looked at some past papers, and thought, well, actually, why not have a crack at that? And this, like I said, this was in 2021 at this point. And I had a bit more time on my hands. Although I was working, I just had a bit more time on the weekends and the like. And I just decided to take that exam. And I thought the next step to it will be the level 7. And I quite honestly, I didn't know if I was going to take it at that point. I was looking at it thinking, level 6 PCAM, level 6 advanced financial planning, that's probably going to be enough. But unfortunately, with my own sort of internal battles that I have in myself every so often, I always want to do more. And I was umming about level 7, and I thought, well, actually, it's a case study. It's something a bit different. It's something that I can really put some real life experience into, and some of the knowledge that I picked up on level 6 to build something for this plan. So I just jumped in with two feet, and I'd be honest, I didn't really know the full amount of work that would be that needs to be input into this qualification, in respect of certain things that we'll talk about later, I'm sure. But it was a bit of a leap of faith, really, and maybe a bit of stupidity. But I thought, why don't I have a look at it, and why not do it? And I put myself forward.
And that was that. And then that started. Excellent. And so tell us a little bit about what your experience was like going through the case study. And I know that many of our listeners want to hear about, the good bits that you really enjoyed, but also the tough bits that you had, sticky issues with or took extra time to bend your head around.
Yeah, of course. So I think from the things that I enjoyed, this is probably going to sound quite sad actually, but I enjoyed writing it up. I enjoyed being able to look at the case study initially, have my initial thoughts on what I think should be considered for the two individuals that I had in my case study, and actually putting the paper together and writing it up. I felt a bit like I'd achieved something it was a bit different to an exam. And that's what I really enjoyed about it, because with examination, you can really learn the answers. But with this, you have to adapt and you have to think about, okay, if I put this into section 6, for example, how does it affect the rest of the plan? So it made me think outside the box. It made me lean on real life experience. It made me lean on the advanced financial planning exam I'd taken previously. And that's what I enjoyed about it. It really did test me. The sticky parts of it, well, like I said, I jumped in with it 2 feet without really not understanding the full amount of work that was involved. And I think the parts that I'm very grateful for your assistance, of course, was what I didn't realize was around the cash flow. And that was the toughest thing that I found in terms of building that spreadsheet and actually understanding that I needed one in the first place to actually write up the report. That I would say was probably the hardest and the stickiest point in terms of getting that together.
And I think, you're not alone. Many people think that, getting to grips with a case study, or can I use my own software that maybe I use in my business? And if you don't, getting your head around, quite a lot of us have, fairly basic rudimentary knowledge of how to use Excel, because we don't really need it anymore with proprietary software around, do we? So actually getting into the bowels of how Excel works and making it work properly and finding your problems and what does that formula mean and all of those kind of things, they kind of make your head spin a bit, don't they?
Yeah, exactly that. For me, it was very much starting from the beginning. I can use Excel to a certain degree, but not to the extent that they require to effectively build a cash flow. So, leaning on your experience and your course, I managed to build a cash flow. But then I was teaching myself other formulas to add into my cash flow where my client situation required it. So that was really tough. And there would be, I would be, looking at one formula really for an hour or so. But as soon as I cracked it, it was all made sense. But it was just about building it and putting it in the right place for the right situation. So that was definitely the toughest part of the qualification, really.
Yeah. And I quite often find, I don't know if you found this, but I quite often find that when you get to those tough situations and you kind of think, right, okay, well, can I, like you were saying, can I apply the knowledge that I've got and just kind of take the labels off it? Because if I'm doing a retirement planning spreadsheet, the Excel doesn't know it's retirement planning, does it? It's just running a formula and numbers. So can I take away the labels? Can I write out longhand, what it is that I'm trying to achieve so that I can kind of batch out different parts of a formula, so I'm kind of not battling with the whole thing for hours on end. How did you approach kind of breaking it down?
Well, actually, on some occasions, I went back to basics. I actually wrote down the formula in paper format.
Yeah.
I was going, okay, how do I... and when a formula didn't work, for example, I would write it down and say, okay, where am I missing something that should be input in this formula? And I can't remember exactly what formula it was, but I managed to crack it by doing that rather than just typing it in and looking at cell after cell, because you just do get you just need a fresh set of eyes sometimes. The other strategy is just walk away. I'd walk away and take a breather and think, you know what, I'll just have a crack at that tomorrow, or the next time I get an opportunity to do so, because sometimes you just looking at it on a cell over and over doesn't always provide the best results. You just need to get a fresh set of eyes and maybe refresh yourself, really.
Yes, and that's the definition of insanity, isn't it? Doing the same thing over and over again,
Yeah,
expecting a
quite
different
right.
result. I'm with you on that one, though, completely. Having done my CFP many moons ago now, I'm battling with a spreadsheet. I feel your pain. So, other than the spreadsheets, did you find, like through the course, we concentrated a lot on spreadsheets first, didn't we? And there's all this,
Yes.
there's this urge that I was trying to encourage all of you to overcome, not to write too much, not to jump ahead for the recommendations for everything, but to actually let the numbers do the talking first. Did you find that aspect quite easy to kind of get your head around, or was that kind of one of the areas where you were kind of like, I need to, itching to type something?
No, actually, because I wasn't really itching to type stuff. I wanted to get the cash flow right and make sure that the numbers worked. I think from the writing perspective, I wrote the introduction quite early, to be honest. But then the remaining stuff, I knew what I was going to write, and I wasn't really itching to write it because I wanted to ensure that I did it within your pathway, as you suggest, within your course.
Yeah.
Because I very quickly came to the idea and understanding that whatever you learn within your current role, and whatever reports you have internally within your own business, it's not what the examiner is looking for. The examiner is looking for pure understanding of their set criteria. So even our own internal reports, where I am now, is that they are so different from the report I wrote. And because we look for certain things and we advise on certain things different to what the examiner was looking for. So I wasn't really, really tempted to write too much. I was happy to wait to go in tandem with the pathway, as and when the cash flow was when the cash flow was prepared. I think that's really it in summary. I think that was it was just getting that cash flow done. However, just was the hardest thing to do.
I guess sometimes you've just got to trust the process, haven't you, and kind of immerse yourself in it, knowing or trusting that you'll come out okay at the other end, which of course you did because you were successful.
Well, exactly that, Jacqueline, because I've obviously gone on. I did my research in terms of who's going to help me, support me, do this, undertake this qualification, and if I'm going to go to a tutor and then not follow their guidance and they put many people through it, I think I've been a bit silly. So I was trusting yourself and your pathway, in which obviously yielded the results.
Yes, absolutely. Well, congratulations again. I know I've already congratulated probably dozens of times now, haven't I? But
that's okay. You keep carrying on. You carry on.
Take it. So, looking back on the process now, do you have a feel for roughly how many hours it took you from kind of start to finish?
I would say it was definitely easily 200 hours, for me. Probably a bit more than that as well, because I know I keep going back to the cash flow. There were some times where, and I know you had told me not to do this, I would just mess around with it and just see if there was any other outcomes. And that would take me an extra few hours then to put it back to where it started as a base. So I was really number mad on it, to be honest. But I think, once the cash flow is prepared, which is the majority of the time, as you mentioned, you did writing the report was really, quite honestly, the easier part. But I think in total, 200 hours, really, maybe 250 is probably the time you need dedicated to it.
Yeah. And I was going to say, it's not just the doing time, it's that thinking time, like you were saying, going away, taking a break, letting your brain wind down a little bit, coming back, then having other ideas and thinking, oh, maybe that works, all of that, needs to be factored in, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It really does, because there'll be times where I've taken a step away from the desk on the weekend or whatever it might be. And then my other half's talking to me and she goes, "You're still thinking about the spreadsheet, aren't you?" And I'll be like, "Yeah," because I was thinking, oh, what if I did it this way? So if you take into account all of that, it would definitely be, more than 250, most likely. But I think sitting down and actually applying yourself is probably that length of time.
Wow, fantastic. Well done for persevering, because, there aren't that many certified financial planners in the UK, around 1,000 mark at the moment. So you are one of a very few number of people who've achieved that. So, you deserve every success. So tell us a little bit about now. It's what, how long is it? A few months now since
Yeah, a few
you
months since I got the letter. That's
I
right.
got the letter and was dancing around the kitchen. Um, Tell us a little bit about now you've had chance to reflect on the whole process, and all the challenges and all the things it forced you down, all the little rabbit holes and all the rest of it and back out again. Has it changed the way that you approach giving advice or the way you would structure or write a financial plan now?
Yeah, it definitely has. I mean, for the clients I work with, it's very little things that have changed sort of my habits. It's been planning better for meetings. Wanting to ensure that I get the right outcomes for the clients in those meetings. Whereas before I would plan for them, but I wasn't probably as conscious as I am about things that I definitely need to ensure that I get the answer to, so I can offer that guidance and advice to them later on down the line. That type of thing for sure. Even just little things. I know I said I don't actually write the advice, but just writing meeting notes and file notes for clients. I go a bit more in depth because I know that we need to have more information on file to ensure that we can actually really deliver a good outcome for the client. So it's definitely changed, probably more subconsciously more than and actively as well. Yeah, really, to be honest, how I operate with clients, and the other thing is, it's also just flagged up with me the smaller little things that I have to be conscious of. Clients I work with are typically wealthier than the average person on the street, but it's little things like NIC contributions, making sure that they've done those, ISA contributions, make sure they've done those. Typically we wouldn't really consider that all the time.
Yeah.
For certain wealthier clients, because they would say, well, what's the point? It's £20,000 a year for my ISA contribution. I don't need it. But actually, being able to demonstrate and say, well, this is why you need it and this is why you should consider it, over the course of 10, 20, 30 years of investment, is definitely something that has helped me. I think that maybe some other people to go through this course, they're probably doing that already anyway. But I think from my perspective, it's definitely helped me for the things that I wouldn't see or wouldn't really need to consider on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And do you think it's changed the way, you were talking about there about your pre-meeting preparation and information that you definitely wanted to know from the clients when you meet them? Do you think that has helped your skills with asking better client questions along the way?
Yeah, I do. I do actually. I think it's I'm very much a curious person anyway, and I would like to ask clients or people I'm speaking to why they're doing certain things. But I think with this as well, it's definitely pushed me down certain avenues with my questioning, when probably in the past I've thought, well, do I really need to ask that question? Probably not, but so I won't bother. Whereas actually it's actually a good understanding the client, but also it does actually give you that sort of that credibility with the client, because they seem you're really interested if you're asking the really maybe smaller questions to everyday persons. But if you're asking them, they feel to them. Well, my feeling is that they get the trusted advice. You get that trusted advisor status,
Yeah.
and they feel like you are really, really interested in what they have to say and what their life is about. So for sure, it has definitely changed the way I approach things from that perspective.
Yeah, and that's great to hear. And I think because of the types of clients that you're commonly dealing with, that entrepreneur set, that you need a really strong bond, don't you? Because you want them to rely on you. You are kind of part of the furniture for their professional lives. And so if that bond isn't tight enough, isn't tough enough, then I guess the clients, if they're they're very busy, running businesses, and things like that, then, you have to make them prioritize their financial well-being and that of their family in order to make those investment decisions and, push the paperwork through and all of those kinds of things. And all of that helps smooth the pathway if you've got that strong bond.
Quite right. I think that's the most important thing with the clients I work with is that they can trust you. And if they can't, you'll never have a relationship with that individual. And there's certain ways of building that trust, and obviously having the knowledge and experience which comes with time, of course, but the knowledge really to help them. And once you start helping them, they do really start to trust you, and then that's when the relationship really starts to build. Yeah. So I totally agree.
Yeah, fantastic. So we are nearly out of time now, Daniel. So I'm just going to ask you one more question back to the CFP certification. And for those people who are listening, who are still sat on the fence about whether to embark on the CFP process, whether it's worth the 200 plus hours that you were mentioning earlier of all of that effort, putting it in to gain their CFP certification, do you have any tips to share to encourage those people who are sat on the fence at the moment?
Yeah, I do. I think firstly, you said it earlier, being one of 1,000 people in the UK with that certification, I think that for me was definitely something that warmed me to the idea of being only one of 1,000 people in the UK of having this qualification. It also just demonstrates that you've reached a certain level that not everyone can reach to that level, and with clients in particular, I think it just shows that this is someone serious that we're talking to, who really understands their craft. Yeah. The other kind of tips I would say is if you are looking to embark on this, you're going to need to ensure that you set some time and probably set some ground rules at home with your partners and children, because I had to do that. I was very lucky. I've got 2 children, and I was able to take the time to do this because it's not something you should really take lightly. But with that, you also need to ensure you set a timetable, and I think a timetable is key. You plan it in advance of the course, I think, is the best way to do it, and keep to it. You don't want to be saying, oh, I'm behind X chapter 7 or whatever it might be because I just wanted to go out or I had something to do. Make sure you keep to it. And there was a tip that I did. I was able to say, what, I'll get up at 7 on a Saturday morning or whatever it might be, quite early, have some breakfast, and then I would just work on it until like midday to 1 o'clock. And then I'll take the rest of the day off. I'd spend the time with the family and the kids, which then, alleviated some of the pressure of managing children, but also doing the course. So I'll definitely ensure that you would have this timetable and you keep to it. I would highly recommend that anyone who looks at doing your course does it. I think that without it, I would have been lost. Without it, I wouldn't have passed, quite honestly. And I know it's just your podcast here, Jacqueline, but it is worth its weight in gold. I had my reservations initially, and then when I signed up and started looking through the course, I was thinking, this is brilliant because I now have my own timetable that I don't actually have to plan. It's already there for me. And then I'd say the last tip really is we all have our experiences in our current roles or whatever we're doing, whether we're in a bank or a wealth manager or a financial advisor. And we have our experiences, we have our knowledge, but doing this is and undertaking this report is the examiner's report. It's not your employer's report. So I would say not forget everything but forget how you present a report, because you need to meet certain guidelines which the examiner is needing. And some firms will do things differently and only report on certain things. So I would say forget that in some shape or form and what you do from a day-to-day basis, and work on what the examiner wants to see.
Some fantastic tips there, Daniel. Thank you very much for joining me today.
No problem at all. Thanks, Jacqueline. Thanks for having me.
I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. It's really interesting, isn't it, to listen to other people's points of view about different things, all relating to our wonderful financial planning profession. If you know anyone who might be interested in listening to any of these podcasts, please pass on our details to them. So that's it from me. Join me again next time when we'll be talking all things certified financial planner related and also dropping in on our new entrants to the financial planning profession. Bye for now.